one of the important things, I think, for all organizations today is the fact that we're really coming into a very important age. And I call the age that we're coming into the human age. We've gone through lots of stages in our evolution as people and as humans, from the Stone Age to the Industrial Age, the Information Age. And what we've tried to do over many of those years, create tools, create software, create systems to try to replace or reduce the amount of reliance on people and automate things more. But what we found is no matter what we do, we still need people. And in fact, what we've noticed, particularly in the Canadian marketplace, we need people now more than ever. As much as we try to replace them with technology and tools, it seems that there's something about the creative ability of people that enable us to be able to move forward as a society and as a human. So I really think we're coming into an important age called the human age, and I do want to touch on a couple of important aspects about that. Just to give you a bit of context, the Conference Board of Canada recently ran a survey looking at the top challenges for CEOs around the world. And what's very interesting is human capital is the major challenge identified by CEOs around the world. This came ahead of things like customer relationships, operational excellence, the whole area of lean, even the corporate brand. So human capital is very much on the minds of employees, or sorry, of CEOs around the world. It's very critical. And not only that, when we asked what tactics are you going to use to drive improvements to human capital, number one was employee training and development. Number two was raising employee engagement. So employee engagement is a very critical aspect for executives around the world. Looking more closely at home, when we looked at CEOs in North America, human capital was number two. And what's interesting, this study has been done since 2011. Human capital wasn't even on the radar screen back in 2011. Customers, operations, innovation, those were top issues on CEOs' minds, risk. Over the last couple of years, human capital has moved from not on the radar to 5th place to 4th place, and now in North America, it's 2nd place. So they're very much on the minds of executives around the world. When we ask those same CEOs, what is it that you're going to look to improving human capital? Improving or raising employee engagement was their number one tactical response. So it is very much on the minds of CEOs worldwide, but also closer to home, we see that human capital and employee engagement is very, very critical. Now, before we get into what drives engagement, which is really the core of what we're talking about today, I do want to touch a little bit about the fact that satisfaction and engagement are very different. You can easily have a satisfied employee, but it may not guarantee an engaged employee. Engagement and satisfaction are very different factors, and they should be measured different, they should be focused on different, and really the biggest difference between engagement and satisfaction is engagement is focused on what employees are willing to give back to the organization, whereas satisfaction is much more around what do I get out of the deal. So it's important to understand when you look at engagement that you do measure it differently than job satisfaction. Just to give you some interesting stats, I thought this was quite interesting, how much and how important engagement is and how much it links to ability to deliver the goals of the organization. You know, customer satisfaction is one of those measures. We all know a lot of stats around health, you know, chemotherapy and breast cancer, antibiotics and ear pain, smoking, and incidence of lung cancer within 25 years. You'll notice on the right-hand side of some of these pains, you'll see that we'll have a R, which is a statistical measure of 0.03, 0.08, sorry, 0.08 and 0.08, which is quite interesting. So that's actually the correlation between smoking and lung cancer. The correlation is at 0.08. So we all know that smoking causes lung cancer. When we looked at sort of other interesting, well-known health factors, what we found was, for example, Ibuprofen and pain reduction had a stronger correlation. Alcohol and aggressive behavior. Sleeping pills and insomnia correlation. So as we get through some of these, even stronger correlations around engagement, around the stats. But what's really telling is something very simple, and I thought this was interesting because I saw it in the study. Viagra and male functioning, 0.38, very strong correlation, and we hear a lot about that and over the years. But what I really want to point out is employee engagement and customer satisfaction, 0.43, an incredibly strong link between having high levels of engagement and high levels of customer satisfaction, significantly higher than a lot of the other key health benefits in society that we know to be true today, like smoking and lung cancer. But the correlation is so weak, but we know it's true. And it's interesting, when I see data like this, I often wonder why executives aren't even paying more attention to engagement, because it has such a strong link. A little bit about TalentMap. TalentMap helps organizations measure engagement and help them improve engagement. And probably if one thing you remember from this part of the webinar is that engagement equals discretionary effort. That's really what we're trying to measure, is the level of discretionary effort employees bring to the organization. So that's a little bit of background around engagement. It is different from job satisfaction, and it's very important. In fact, I think it's still underrated in how important we'll see it come over the years as people realize the strong link between strong engagement and better business results. So today we're going to be talking about one of the variables that we measure in our engagement survey. We look at a whole range of variables in all of our surveys. We look at things like immediate management, org vision, senior leadership. That's at the bottom of this pyramid. We look at comp, work environment, feedback, teamwork, work-life balance. All of those have an impact on employee engagement. What we're going to look at today is one of the most important factors that relate to employee engagement, and that's professional development, professional growth. And in fact, whenever we analyze data for all of our clients, almost invariably, professional growth comes out as one of the most important drivers of employee engagement across all industries and across all sectors in the economy. So even though things change like teamwork or work environment, they can be interchanged for different types of organizations. Almost invariably, in every organization we work with, professional growth is a very critical factor that seems to have correlation to engagement at a very, very strong number. Now, when I talk about correlation to engagement, I think it's important to understand what we talk about when we talk about how strong that correlation is. So we looked at the links between different health incidents like smoking and lung cancer, and we looked at the incidents between engagement and customer satisfaction. What we do in all of our survey work is we go one step down and say, well, what are the factors that drive engagement? And in any statistical relationship, anything that has a 0.8 or a 0.4 has a fairly strong correlation to engagement. Below that, it has a really weak correlation. So understanding the correlation to engagement is very important in understanding what to focus on as an organization when you run engagement surveys. What I'm showing here is a sample engagement results from a real client. Anything on the left-hand side of this graph has a very weak correlation to engagement. The R, like we saw on the previous slide, would be 0.001 or 0.002. Anything on the right-hand side of this graph looks more like a straight line. It has a very strong correlation with engagement. When we ran all of our benchmark data in our analysis across hundreds of thousands of employees, what we found was professional growth, ability to learn, develop, came out as the #1 driver of employee engagement. We know employee engagement has a correlation to customer sat. Not only that, we know that to improve engagement, you have to work on a whole range of things. One of the most important things to work on is professional growth. It is the one that really drives engagement for all organizations. So that's why today I wanted to really focus in on what we can do to improve employee engagement within the workplace. And I'm very happy to be able to present to you Dale, who's a principal and executive at Knightsbridge, and also Terri Phipps from Knightsbridge. They will be talking to you about what some of the best organizations out there are doing with respect to employee engagement. Dale.
Thank you. Now, I do not see the presentation on screen, Sean. Do I need to be seeing that now?
Okay. I just shared the screen with you, but I could pull on mine up.
And it just has connected to GoWebinar, so I'm not sure that it's showing.
Just a minute. Let me pull it back up.
And while you're doing that, then I'll ask Terri to say a few words about Knightsbridge.
Good morning and good afternoon to some of you, depending on which time zone you're in. Thanks very much for joining all of us, and I'm hoping that some of you are relatively aware of Knightsbridge, but if you aren't, I'll give you some context to what we do so that you can have a sense of almost the life cycle of the employee. So really, if you think about the time that you're trying to engage the employee, we do everything from the very beginning, trying to attract the employee through executive recruiting and recruiting in general. As well, we go into the entire span of leadership development. And we talked a minute ago about teamwork. So we do teamwork, succession planning, executive coaching, the whole breadth of the learning spectrum. And then if you think about as the optimization part of the, oh, here we go. So here's the slide. So basically finding the talent, developing the talent, and optimizing the talent. And this is probably the best one page that gives you an idea of what we do. So as I mentioned around the left column, so having the right people in the right roles. So executive search, interim executives, recruitment solutions, and of course onboarding. Then developing the talent, so leadership development, succession planning, certainly team effectiveness, which is a big part of what we do, assessment coaching, and we'll be talking today about career management. And to Sean's point about professional growth, you know, we realize that workforce cost is probably one of the biggest expenses within an organization. And to Sean's point about getting at discretionary effort, what we're looking to do is align your people strategies with your business strategies, and that's inside of career management. And then on the optimizing talent, this is where career transition, I think we're all familiar with that. If you have decided that at some point that it's time to say goodbye, it's doing that well, making sure that you mitigate your risks around being seen as an employer of choice, and that you do that well. So we also do workforce management and then talent analytics. So that gives you a sense of who we are. And then what I'm going to do is introduce you to Dale. Now, Dale is a principal in our career management solutions practice. She has a deep background in human resources, business operations in both the private and the public sector. She's also a professional leadership coach, and she has worked for many years as an executive career transition consultant with Knightsbridge. So today, Dale will discuss the linkages between career management and employee engagement and describe how an organization can truly bring career management alive. So I'll pass it over to you, Dale. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Terri.
Dale, just let me know, Sean, when you need to advance the slides.
Okay, that would be fine. That's great. So this is perfect, Sean. Thank you. And thanks, Sean, very much for the opportunity to speak with you and the group today. So what you see on screen right now is a group of rather fuzzy employees who are having a conversation. And for those on the line, have you ever heard this kind of thing being said before? Hey, no one told me about that opportunity. I didn't even know it was posted. Or if I do a good job, I'll get promoted. Or I'm waiting for my manager to tell me what my career move should be. He or she knows best. I mean, what is going on with this population? I would say that these are employees that are not taking or feel they cannot take accountability for their personal career. And no one in their organization, a manager or a mentor or a coach, is really speaking with them about their career. And it's possible that their organization doesn't have any way to support career management, and these people are feeling a bit lost. So what does this actually or likely mean? Well, it likely means, as Sean had mentioned earlier, that these are unengaged people. People less likely to put that extra effort into their work. They may feel they have little opportunity to learn and grow. Could this organization have retention issues? Very likely. Could there be attraction issues in this organization? Hey, don't come work here. You don't build a career in this organization. This kind of talk, and you often hear about this kind of talk as you look at your employee survey data, this kind of talk means you likely need some career management in this organization. And you can move along there, Sean. Let me just talk about what career management is for a moment. This is a definition that has been described by Knightsbridge as to what we mean by career management. So a strategic approach to integrate an individual's career desires and aspirations and the organization's business objectives with the intention to drive engagement and retention. And everybody reads that and says, yeah, okay, I get it. But think about this for a while. Some customers will say to me, but Dale, I don't want to bring career management into my organization. What if I give my employees the skills to look for work outside of the organization? I don't want to lose people. Well, this is not about losing people. This is about retaining your people. It's about making them feel valued and truly helping them to build their career with you by ensuring that their aspirations are considered and helping them see how their development in your organization is contributing to their career future. Let me say that if you don't have these discussions with people at all, then you would be running the risk of losing your people. People stay in organizations if they can see that they're building a career in a way that makes sense for them. And you could advance. Thanks, Sean. So what is career management and why is it important? Well, Sean spoke about this so eloquently just a few minutes ago. Career management truly drives engagement. In fact, it's one of the top drivers of engagement that any organization's leaders have at their fingertips. So why is it important? Well, simply put, it drives business success. Engaged employees work to do the best they can do because they have enthusiasm and energy for their work. And career management attracts talent. Hey, come and work here, folks. We'll work with you to help you build your career. It enables an organization to be competitive in the war for talent. And it retains people. People will stay when they feel their work is contributing to their career aspirations. It also enables an organization to understand and meet the needs of multiple generations in the workplace, and it can be fluid for different ages and stages and circumstances of the workforce. And how many of you on the call today are in organizations that are flatter now than they were, say, 5 years ago? Fewer layers in the organization, fewer managerial roles, fewer places for people to see as upward promotion opportunity. And boy, we hear about this from our customers. It's a very common concern given the past, say, 5 years of our recessionary economy. So how many of you are actually worried that your managers and your employees see less upward mobility, and you may be worried that you think your people need to leave you to further their career? And you can shift now to the next one, Sean. And for many organizations, the traditional view of moving up the ladder, the way we used to look at career evolution, is actually not as feasible anymore because of the flattening of the organization. And in fact, in most organizations, even the tradition of establishing the, quote, career path is no longer feasible. The career path, hey, you employee, you do job A for 2 years, and then you move to job B, and then in 3 years you get job C. That kind of thing actually doesn't fly in most organizations anymore. And that's because roles change so very fast now. New customers, new stakeholders, new markets, new fiscal realities, new technology, all of this conspires to make roles change very rapidly and organizations reinvent themselves rapidly. So one cannot always plan for the specific view of a career path as they used to be able to do because the roles change or disappear. Instead, then, one, as an employee, needs to plan for the kind of development that bodes well for future eventualities. So careers no longer look like solely going up the ladder. Sean, if you would do the honor for the next one, careers now look more like this, which I would call the spaghetti model of career management. And, careers slow up, they speed down, they move across laterally, they stay in place, they grow in the existing role. Some folks, there's reinvention. Somebody may choose to go deep in expertise development. Someone may change direction altogether, or all of the above. The good thing about the spaghetti model is there's lots of opportunity. But the more difficult thing with this reality is managers and employees sometimes just aren't quite sure what to do with a career map like this. Managers will often say to us, they just don't know what to say. What do I say to my employee about their career? It's not that they're not good managers, but they don't want to make promises that they can't live to, or they do not know exactly what advice to give in such a fluid environment. They don't necessarily know what opportunities may exist internally to support career development, or maybe they just even haven't thought about it. So many managers will say to me, Dale, I worry about having a career conversation. How would I handle that employee who maybe has an entitlement mentality about their career? Hey, manager, I've been here 5 years. Where's my promotion? Or what about the employee who thinks maybe they're better than maybe the organization thinks they are? They think they're ready for another role, but the organization doesn't share that view. Or what about the employee who is ready, would be great for a new role, but just doesn't want that move? Have you ever had a name on your succession plan only to discover that when you tap that employee on the shoulder to say, great, congratulations, here's your new role, they blink at you and say, I don't want that job. You never asked them if they wanted it. So all of these tend to worry managers about the career discussion because they feel they don't know what to say. So the next slide takes a look at the career partnership approach that Knightsbridge sees. And we look at career management like a three-way partnership, or a three-legged stool, if you will. So first of all, in our philosophy of this, and I think you would share this philosophy, employees actually own their own career. So they need to take personal accountability for it, not sit back and wait for the organization to do it to them, or not having an entitlement view of career evolution. However, the leader or the manager enables the employee's career, and they do that through solid career coaching and helping to link the employee to resources inside or out the organization to support development. And then thirdly, organizations support career management through initiatives like giving you time to attend a WebEx like this, or providing career coaching training for employees and managers, and assisting with development planning, and creating a culture of career management accountability in an organization. So what we'll be talking about today, Terry and I, is how you can really make a picture like this come alive in your organization. Before I move into that, though, I'd like to talk about the difference between performance management and career management for a moment. Performance management is sometimes something that folks confuse. They'll say to me, but Dale, we do career management already. Our managers will have a discussion about career twice a year during the performance review. And the difference here is that performance management tends to be an annual or a twice annual cyclical process. It talks about the objectives and the expectations for the current role and how well one has done to those objectives. It may have a component that addresses development on how to improve or what their plans may be over the short term. But career management is more future focused over a wider time frame. It's more aspirational in discussion. It looks beyond just a year or two. It's designed to co-create goals and help the employee own those goals for their career, to help them explore for themselves their unique strengths, their interests, and find solutions to their own career-related questions. It's designed to help create a path to discover and plan for the future. So the question I get is, should the career conversation occur at the same time as the performance discussion? There may be times when this could be appropriate, but generally it's best to have a career discussion be separate from the performance discussion, although they are linked. So think about this. What about that employee who's doing a great job? They've had a very positive performance review and the manager says, hey employee, now let's talk about your career. What's the message? That employee may say, oh, good, I'm getting a promotion now. And yet that's not at all what the manager may intend to talk about. Or about the employee who says, gee, I've just had a pretty rough performance review, and my manager says, hey, Kay, let's talk about your career. They're going to think, oh, my goodness, I'm toast. I'm getting fired. So really, career management is less cyclical. It happens more as part of the day-to-day conversation with someone. It is part of the day-to-day planfulness and thoughtfulness of dialogue. It can happen walking in from the parking lot. It can happen with an employee at the end of a project. It happens whenever the employee and the manager elect to have this discussion. It doesn't have to be cyclical. So we move to the next slide, Sean. I want to put this into some context for you, and it kind of ties with what Sean was saying earlier. Knightsbridge does a lot of research related to careers and companies that are doing career coaching conversations, and we've found some consistent feedback, just as Sean has found from the greater, wider research. With our research, which shows us that leaders or managers aren't actually having regular career conversations with people. And when they do, it's primarily integrated with performance management. And as a result, it may not be as impactful as they would like. We also found that organizations do not necessarily encourage career conversations because they just haven't thought about it as being important. Likely, they don't understand the link to engagement. And when those companies do hold these discussions, many of our respondents only did it for high potential people, not for everybody. Just think of the possibility of holding career discussions with all of your people, all levels, your steady Eddie people as well as your top performers. All employees need to be engaged, not just the high performers or high potentials. Imagine an engaged workforce at all levels. And is that possible? Yes, it is. And it actually may be more simple than you think. As we look at the next slide, it really starts to talk about people risk. What needs to happen in an organization to prevent people risk? You know, it's interesting. People risk is as important, if not more important, than financial risk or asset risk or any other kind of risk in an organization. But most managers put less importance on it. How well do you know your employees? How well does your manager know you? You might want to think about this for yourself. Oftentimes when somebody leaves, we say we didn't understand what was important for that employee. And by that point, it's way too late because they have gone. So let's look at what engagement and career management really means if we look at the next slide. I laugh when I see this slide. What is the impact of having a disengaged employee? Well, geez, in this slide, what's the simple effort of moving that branch to get a better line on the road? Why? It seems so obvious. Why didn't this individual do this? Well, without really understanding your employee and what inspires them or what gets them motivated and what disengages them, you really don't know them. It isn't just about the work environment. It's also about their personal world because they bring their personal self to the workplace as well. If you do not know your people and you do not pay attention to their career interests, they do not feel valued. They lose their engagement in your organization. If you could just dial up engagement in your organization by, say, 5%, what would be the productivity impact? It would be significant. And as I look at the next slide, this is where we start to see return on investment related to career management, and this fits exactly with what Sean was talking about. Our research indicated that career supportive organizations, these are organizations where the managers are regularly holding career management discussions, they set objectives, they measure career objectives and progression. Career supportive organizations had better business performance. And we measured the business performance by increased revenue over companies that didn't provide career coaching for their people. And this was consistent. We looked at engagement and levels of engagement, and we measured specifically the professional growth area. Sometimes this also shows up in the immediate manager area as well in an employee engagement survey, and we found that those that drove career conversations had greater engagement and increased revenue. So if we look at the next slide, this is where the numbers come into play, and this is one to truly absorb in this presentation today. of the respondents that were deemed to be career supportive organizations, 78% reported positive revenue growth and ranked 21% ahead of organizations that were not career supportive organizations. Wow. So stop for a second here, absorb that thought. If you're in a position in your organization where you're trying to get sponsorship from your senior leadership team or get budget or whatever to institute career management in your workplace, this is the kind of thing that you would want to talk to them about. This isn't just a nice to do. This is a mission critical business impacting thing to do. Career management increases engagement, which increases business performance. Nothing would get an attention of a leader more than something like that. So then the question is, and you can, thank you very much, Sean, the question is, how do you really make this thing happen? So what might be on your mind right now, and this is a question I get often, is that's all well and good, Dale, but holy smokes, every employee is different. How do we help with all the different kinds of employees out there, all their different ages and stages, all their different views of career? Well, the starting point, of course, is to find out what career success means for an employee or for a group of employees. And I'll give you an example. So one of our companies that we work with is a major global packaged goods company. And this company a few weeks back said, you know, I think we have a diversity problem. And I think what it is that we don't understand women in our organization. I thought, oh, yeah, okay, well, what's going on here? They said, you know, our steady performing young women are leaving us once they have children. They're not staying with us. This is a real problem. It's costing us a fortune to retrain new people. We must not understand women. We have a diversity problem. But when we explored this more fully, it wasn't actually a diversity problem. It was a problem of career management and not understanding what career success looks like for this population. So this company had an up-or-out mentality. If you weren't moving for the next job, we don't value you as much. But this population wanted to hold steady for a while. They were raising the young family. They were still doing great work. They still wanted to develop. They still wanted to learn. But they didn't want to have the increased time commitment or responsibility of a promotion just quite yet because they were so busy. So the organization inadvertently ignored this population for a while. They were actually forcing a leave for people they actually wanted to retain because they did not understand what career meant to them at this point in time. All they had to do was ask. And so we say to an organization, ask and ask often because the answer changes with life-changing circumstances. And as the next slide indicates, you know, for most employees, the manager is the gateway of the future. And from our experience, many managers really underestimate the impact of engagement and their impact on engagement and the ripple effects of their actions. Conversations about what is important to an employee can go a heck of a long way to build morale. And this is true from the top of the house right through to frontline supervisors. Because you all have heard this before, that people don't leave organizations, they leave managers. So how do you help your managers or your leaders have great career conversations? The next slide looks at a model that Knightsbridge has created to help have managers be better trained in being career coaches for their people. And we call it the BUILD model. The word B-U-I-L-D of BUILD is an acronym that really talks about the 5 steps. And we have a full suite of training to help managers actually deliver these steps really effectively. So the build is begin, the B of build is begin to have conversations. Just by starting, just by opening up the conversation, you'll create an environment of trust and get the career culture moving in an organization. U is for understand, really asking good, probing, discovery questions to truly understand what employees enjoy and what they're motivated by. We help in our training, we help our managers become coaches. And many managers will say, I don't know what to say, I'm used to having all the answers, but by being a coach, the real message is you don't have to have answers. In fact, asking good questions is the point of having a career conversation, because you're helping your employee take accountability and discover answers for themselves. We help them listen at multiple levels. We help inspire. The I is for inspire. We help them understand themselves. We help them understand their presence in the organization and how to help employees get the feedback they need to support their career decisions. We help the employees understand the perceptions about them or their brand in the organization. And we help managers understand how to give really solid feedback in helping them build brand. Link, or L, link to the business is really important, because a manager will have to have honest conversations about the employee's goals and making sure they're realistic within the organization and making tweaks here and there if adjustments are required. And of course, D is for discuss progress. We need to make this real. So set objectives, set SMART objectives, and really driving a plan and celebrating that plan. A lot of this includes development planning, and so I want to just talk a moment about that. We have a philosophy, and I think most of you would also share this. We call it the 70-20-10 rule here, and that is creating development that matches the employee's interests while still being relevant to the business. And about 90% of learning actually happens on the job. That 10% of formal training is also important, but 90% is on the job. Does not have to be expensive, just needs to be creative. So in our training, we help managers and organizations understand how to develop people. It could be things like special projects or secondments or role shadowing or rotations or committee involvement. There's so many ways to help people learn on the job that doesn't have to be expensive. But how many of you say things like, you know, our managers know how to develop for immediate skill, but they don't know how to develop for personal or professional growth? It's a different kind of development. So we help people understand how to do that. You may also hear that managers often say, you know, our managers hoard their people. They don't want to let them go on committee works or project work because they want to get their numbers and just, you know, use them for their work while they're there. So we help organizations look at how development can actually happen effectively and prevent that siloed mentality or hoarding mentality. And all of this put into place gives you that return on investment that we talked about earlier. But let's not forget the employee. The next slide looks at a model for how to help employees take accountability for their careers as well. And it's interesting, this new model called 5 Steps to Career Success maps beautifully with the build model for the manager, so we can train both to work effectively together. So we help employees to gain insight into what truly motivates them, what their aspirations really are, and how they can work day to day with their managers to really help their objectives come alive. How we help them express their value, understand what matters to them, and then express their value proposition to the organization. We help them understand what their brand is, and is there a disconnect between the way you think you are and the way the organization sees you? You know, what are you going to do about that? How do you develop and manage the perceptions around you as an employee? And how do you build internal and maybe some external networking support to help you with your development? And how do you truly, in partnership with your manager, share your goals and help your goals truly come alive for you into the future? So both of these together become extremely powerful, and it's tied, as I mentioned, in the fundamentals of career coaching. And the next slide looks at just a high level of what those fundamentals for coaching are. And many of you on the call are probably either coaches or you have coaching in your organization. This model will not be anything different than what you've seen before, but we truly help our managers and our employees work together to discover, have good probing questions to discover, how to listen to each other effectively, how to get and give good feedback, how to truly create accountability so the employee owns their career, and how to acknowledge progress as it moves along, because we need to make this real. So what that really says is, and next slide please, Sean, career coaching is about fostering awareness and motivation and shifting the accountability for career development to the employee. It is not about, next slide, and this is where the managers start to breathe more easily, it's not about fixing an employee. It's not about focusing solely on skills training. It's not about performance management. It's more future focused. It's not based on the past. And it's not about having all the answers. It's about coaching. It's about good questions and empowering employees to figure it out for themselves. And this skill set, we're applying it to career management, but this skill set can be applied to anything in the manager-employee relationship. And so this is when managers say to us, okay, now I get it. I'm not afraid now to have career discussions. I don't have to feel like I have to have all the answers. Instead, I need to provide solid guidance and be a good coach. So the question that's on your mind is, thank you, sounds really good. How do we really make that happen? This is a slide that looks at the way our customers generally make this kind of thing happen. They don't necessarily have to do all of this. It's like a menu of choices that customers go through to bring career management alive in their organization. So we start with strategy and design. We like to really deeply understand an organization, and this works whether it's a large or a small or a public or private or for-profit or not-for-profit. Career management can work in all kinds of organizations. We've done this for an organization of 3 people. We've also done it for global organizations of thousands and tens of thousands of people. So we ask, what is the business objective of the organization, or what's the talent agenda? What's on the minds of people in this organization? What are the people programs that currently exist, and how is career management aligned to that? In other words, it starts with customizing the approach and incorporating what already exists in a company into the program and adding extras, augmenting what's going on, but using the language of the organization. Then comes training. The training can happen in many, many ways. It can be traditional classroom style training. It can be webinars. That's helpful in decentralized or large organizations. It can even be train the trainers, where we license the trainers in an organization to deliver this for themselves internally. Or it can be very interestingly done by e-learning. We have a career management portal, and Terri will make an offer to you around that portal in just a moment. But we have a portal that's got a full, robust, avatar-led e-learning for both leaders and employees to help them learn this. Many companies will go through the more traditional training and then bring the portal in as a sustaining tool afterwards. But the portal can also be a standalone. All of the training, the portal, all of this work is available in both French and English, and we can do this work globally if any of you are in a global organization. There's also career assessments. This is very helpful. So career assessments can be self-assessments. They exist inside the portal, or we can bring them in as part of the more seminar or webinar type training, or we can do even detailed psychometric assessments because Knightsbridge has a whole assessment practice in it. But the assessments are helpful because an individual can look at their career preferences or their personal style or their personal motivators or their personal interests and use this great information to help inform their career decisions. And they can share their assessments, if they so choose, with their manager or coach to help make good career planning decisions. And that's very, very helpful. We also can provide and would encourage career coaching. Now, career coaching can be individual coaching. For example, if you've got a high potential person that you really want to wrap your arms around and help them build their deep career in your organization. Or we can do peer or pod coaching. Pod coaching becomes helpful if you've trained a group of managers on how to have career coaching conversations and they're getting started and you'd like to follow up with them over time to help them with any issues or concerns that they might find. Or you can use group coaching for a new grad program or a leadership development program or for management training. It can be very, very helpful. But all of this is to say that career management solutions can be simple or they can make them more complex if you so choose, depending on where you're at as an organization. It can be done as a menu, as a choice over time. Doesn't have to be all at once, but any career conversation is better than no conversation at all. And I'd like to say just another few more words about the portal, as this is well worth scoping out. So when Terri talks about a special offer for you, I suggest you take her up on it. So this portal is interactive, as I say. It's structured in an adult learning format with very robust content. It can be linked to your learning management system or LMS if you have one. It can be a standalone offering or be a sustaining tool to more traditional training. We do all the work. We host it. We do the technical setup. We make it simple for you. And best of all, the cool bit of this is you can add your own logos, put your own color into it, add your own material. You can actually make it look like you designed it yourself. How to be a superhero in one easy step around career management in your organization. There's a portal for managers, there's a portal for leaders, and you can actually have one or the other. There's a whole portal section for assessments as well. So we're going to offer you an opportunity to see this in action, and you'll hear about that in a moment. But I'll summarize now. That's a lot of information I've given to you rather quickly. So to summarize, any career conversation is better than none at all. It does not have to be expensive to roll out career management. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. Managers will complain, oh no, another thing I have to do. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be just part of the day-to-day meeting and operation of the organization. So it can be very simple, but the impact, as Sean mentioned early on, the impact on engagement is phenomenal. And the impact of engagement on your business success, regardless of the kind of business you have, is incredible. So this is well worth taking some time to think about and to bring into your organization if at all possible. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Terri just to say a few words about the offers that we have for you.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks very much. Well, that was great. I found myself, listening to that, and I think about the ask and ask often. And, I think any of us who have children, we realize the more often we talk with our kids and engage with them, we're more connected with them. And the same applies with our employees. And it is the idea of having those regular conversations and engaging them that way. The ROI and the ROE, I harken back to the slide that talked about if you don't have career management conversations, it's 57% profitability versus 78% when you do. That's going to be huge when you start to have this conversation and work within your organization to sort of sell it. But the point being is it really isn't expensive, and it's relatively straightforward and easy to do. So Dale talked about an offer. It's not kind of a call in now and you'll get it, but we really do want to give you a gift. So in the Career Capital portal, we'd like to give you a gift of a 2-week trial license. One of the things I like about the portal is it has some live, almost role plays, I would say, and it helps people sort of understand what it would look like. So it's very interesting. We could do the 2-week trial for you license, or if you wanted to kind of go to a needs assessment and a proposal based on the layers within your organization, we could go right to that step now if you'd like. So in any case, just reach out to me. My email address is there, my phone number, and we'd love to continue the conversation. So I'll pass it over to you, Sean, and thank you again, Dale, and back to you, Sean.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, both Dale and Terri. It was very interesting to see, from my perspective, to give you a bit of a sense in that I have an opportunity to present survey results to a wide range of organizations over the years. And one of the biggest things, as I talked about earlier, is professional growth. And professional growth is usually a very key driver of engagement, it's usually in the top 3 almost in every organization that we go into. But one of the biggest challenges for organizations, and I think, Dale, you talked about it, is the fact that organizations today are flatter and flatter all the time. So how do you create these opportunities in a flat organization? So I think what you talked about here, having this sort of a spaghetti model as opposed to a rigid hierarchy model of career development, is something that organizations have to get their mind around so they can coach and support managers around doing that. So I thought that was really good, and it's something that I'm going to take away from this because I'll be able to share that with my particular clients. So thank you very much. We don't have much time for questions. A couple of questions did come in. One is just asked, will the slide deck be emailed out or available to participants? Absolutely, yes. We will send out a copy of this deck to participants so you can have a copy of it and be able to access the information in here as well as the contact information. And then there'll also be a webinar recording of this, so it'll be posted if anything on your team think would benefit. Please feel free to access the webinar. You can get it off of from Terri or from Dale, or of course off of the TalentMap website in a few days. So those are the two areas that will be there. We just have a couple of minutes, so I will just wrap up here. Just for TalentMap, just a bit of an update. We have a number of events coming up. Of course, we have our July webinar. Our July webinar will be on compensation. One of the most talked about topics on employee engagement surveys, but not necessarily one of the key drivers. So it's an interesting topic. We will be talking about compensation and how do you manage and what can you do about compensation in relation to employee engagement. And then over the fall, we're at a range of different events and conferences across the country. So thank you very much. We don't have any more time. I'm going to wrap up there, and I appreciate, Dale, your insight and your knowledge and experience on this topic. It was an excellent presentation. And Terri, thank you very much for enabling your team to be able to pull this together and hopefully give some insight to our clients and prospects about what they can do around one of the most important factors around engagement, and that's career development and professional growth. Thank you, and we'll sign off there.
To contact us, or to learn more, just Google TalentMap, or simply click on the link below.